So who can forget this reel right here? The Flight Feather Bait Finesse Reel. It's a reel that on paper boasts the highest specs by far of any bait finesse reel in history, and it actually backed up that performance out on the water by easily casting and pitching ultra lightweight sub 2 gram lures. But unfortunately, despite its impressive performance, a lot of people, including the most hardcore bait finesse enthusiasts, kind of dismissed this reel due to the fact that, well, as you can see, it's got a very unusual color scheme that makes this reel look very toy-like. And in fact, in the unboxing video, I believe I mentioned that this reel would sell a whole lot better if they gave it a more natural neutral color. And it turns out that apparently they were listening, because now we have this reel. Now apparently this is also called the Flight Feather, but this model is called the Cormorant. Now the Cormorant is a fishing bird that a lot of anglers actually dislike, as they are very proficient at catching fish, and I suppose if a group of cormorant decide to come to your local lake or pond, they could literally just eat out all the fish within a couple of weeks and be gone. But we're not here to complain about a fishing bird. We're here to check out this newest, most cutting edge bait finesse reel. And before we open up the box, I'm going to show you one of the first pictures of this reel that came out. And it looks like the color in this picture is a very, I guess, dark gunmetal gray. Reminds me a lot of the 2016 ALDEBARAN BFS. But in more recent pictures, the reel looks black. So let's find out what color this reel truly is. Now speaking of which, here's the picture I was talking about. You can see that it looks gray there. But let's see what the true color is under some lights. As you can see, it comes in this nice little bag. Boom, look at that. Oh, they sent me a left-handed model. I was expecting a right-handed model, but that's okay. What color is this? Is this black or is this shiny gunmetal pewter? Now it looks gray when the light reflects on it, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Okay, so the inspection's done, and before we begin, I just want to say that just like the original Flight Feather, this reel was sent to me courtesy of NACO Fishing. So just like the Flight Feather, you can order this reel from NACO Fishing, and I believe you'll get it way sooner than you could probably get it from China. In fact, I don't even think I've even seen this reel on AliExpress yet. But for those of you who are interested, NACO Fishing is running a very generous promotion for Black Friday. Now it's for a limited time, but they are going to give you guys 20% off this reel. And I believe it's going to be first come first serve. So if you are interested in this reel, you better get on it, because I'm pretty sure with 20% off, they're going to go pretty quick. And of course, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a link either in the description box of this video or pinned in the comments. That'll take you directly to NACO Fishing, where you can get this reel. So with that being said, let us begin. So I guess the big question is the Cormorant basically a Flight Feather with a different paint job? And the answer is pretty much yes. But they did give the Cormorant a couple of big improvements, which I'm going to show you guys here in a second. But the fact that this reel is basically the flight feather, is actually a great thing. So that means that the Cormorant is a very well made, very smooth, very refined reel with very tight build tolerances. In fact, the build quality on this reel is very mainstream, and it rivals even the top bait finesse reels out of Japan, and that's saying something. And anyone who has purchased a flight feather knows what I'm talking about. So it's very smooth, very quiet, no rattling noises, no clicking or clacking noises, and it's just a solid reel despite how light this thing is. And since this is basically the same reel as the flight feather, that means you're going to get a special magnesium frame, carbon side plates, you're going to get a carbon fiber handle, the same comfortable yet very grippy knobs, very stylish end caps, very good looking drag star that is very refined in operation. You're going to get the oversized line guide that is tapered to where the entrance is bigger than the exit. You're going to get the same bearing count at 11+1. So that means the Cormorant will have a pinion that's double bearing supported, and you can definitely feel it. And you're also going to get this cool little clear window where you can see the main gear, and you can definitely check to see if the main gear needs some more grease. And I believe you can actually open up this window to apply the grease so you don't have to take the whole reel apart. And through this window you can see that the main gear is aluminum, but hopefully you can tell that the teeth on the main gear are very small. They're bordering on the, I guess, second level micro module gears from Shimano, which is probably why this reel is so smooth. So yeah, all the great things that you got in the flight feather, you are going to get in this new Cormorant. But now it's time to go over the improvements. Now obviously the first improvement is going to be this very quality, satiny smooth, I'm going to call it dark gray paint job. And just look at the quality of it. There's no kind of imperfections that I found anywhere. It's very smooth. Now the frame does have some texture to it, as you can see, but these side plates have a nice glossy satiny finish, and it's like a deep color too. It's not like a monotone, and because of that you can definitely see a lot of the styling details, especially on this palm side plate, that I missed on the flight feather. So if you look at the palm side plate of the flight feather, you can see there are these three little ridges that I totally ignored because of the color, but on this flight feather you could definitely see them, and also admire the sculpting of the palm side plate. And also on the other side you can definitely see there's some sculpting there, where on the flight feather you kind of ignore it because of the bright paint job. But yeah, overall the main huge difference and improvement is going to be this color, and of course this color is going to match up with pretty much any rod out there, something that we definitely couldn't say about the flight feather. Now the second big improvement is something you're just going to have to take their word for, and that is that they say that they've come up with a process using, I guess, semiconductors to strengthen up the main gear to where it's about 5 times stronger, of course for better durability. Now whether that's true or not, that remains to be seen, but I'm going to take their word for it. But the last improvement is something that I know pretty much everyone's going to like, and that is this. That's right, they added a drag clicker. Now that was missing from the flight feather, surprisingly, but Not only did they add a drag clicker to the Cormorant, the drag clicker they added is very, very refined. I mean, the space in between the clicks is very, very short and precise. You may even call them micro clicks. And the noise or the tone is very subtle, but you can definitely hear it. So in my opinion, this is a very high-end drag clicker. Definitely a step above a lot of the drag clickers you're going to find on pretty much all of the Chinese market AliExpress bass finesse reels. And it kind of reminds me of both Shimano and DAIWA's drag clickers, where the tone is kind of in between both. But yeah, it's just very refined sounding and feeling. And whoever gets one of these Cormorants is really going to appreciate that drag clicker. Okay, so as you can see, the scale is out, and now it's time to show you guys why the Flight Feather and probably this new Cormorant has the highest on paper specs of any bass finesse reel in history so far. So here's the Flight Feather, and during the unboxing and analysis video on this reel that I did, it just barely beat out the KASTKING Kestrel Elite as being the lightest reel I've ever owned, coming in at 4.47 ounces. Now, the Cormorant is supposed to be just a tad heavier, so let's see what the scale says. 4.53. So we're looking at less than 1/10 of an ounce heavier for the new Cormorant, and trust me, you can't feel it. That weight probably came from the addition of that drag clicker. So a very worthy trade-off in my opinion. So now let's get to this spool. Okay, so the spool scales out, and this is where I'm going to show you guys where the Flight Feather and this new Cormorant absolutely destroys its bass finesse competition, and that's going to be spool weight. So I'm going to turn the scale on, and to access the spool of the Cormorant, you just flip this little latch here, and I believe the side plate twists down, and yep, there are the brakes. Static mag track style, which is perfectly fine. But let's check out this spool. Alright, so you got this silver plate here to interact with the magnets. You can see it's got a short spool shaft, and I believe the shaft, pretty sure they say it's made of titanium. And you can also see, while it's very shallow, it is V-shaped and it's deeper in the center, so it might hold a little bit more line than some of its competition. Of course, there's a small little spool bearing on the spool shaft. Now, I just want to clarify something. I mistakenly thought that this little black piece here was metal. That's actually a rubber O-ring. So that means if you want to, you can change out the spool bearing of the Flight Feather as well as this Cormorant BFS reel. So one thing I want to check is Now, when I was doing my casting impressions video of the Flight Feather, I commented that I think while the brakes work perfectly fine, and I was actually casting super lightweight lures, I thought that the brakes could be a little bit stronger, and I don't know. It might be just a color difference, but does it look like that the magnetic plate on the Cormorant reel is a little bit bigger than the Flight Feather? If that's the case, then that should give this Flight Feather a little bit more braking power, which is welcome in my opinion. But anyway, let's go ahead and get a weight on the spools. With Flight Feather coming in at 4.182 with the bearing. Now without this bearing, it's supposed to weigh only 3.4 to 3.5 grams. Alright, so what about the Cormorant? Whoa, did it lose weight? 4.025. Did it actually lose weight? It actually lost like 1/10 of a gram. Now maybe that's down to grease on the spool shaft, but wow, the spool actually got lighter. So this spool, when it comes to the hierarchy of bait finesse reels, including the Japanese, is far lighter than any of its competition, and actually far lighter than 95% of the aftermarket bait finesse spools you can get for its competition. So there's really no need to upgrade this spool, because this is probably as light as you're going to get for a long time. Now, normally I would remove the spool bearing, but I don't want to fool with that O-ring. I'm just going to trust that the Cormorant has a spool weight of about 3.4 to 3.5 grams. Okay, so let's wrap this video up by talking about the cost of the new Flight Feather Cormorant. Now, the original Flight Feather on NACO Fishing's website is an absolute steal at $169. Now, with the Cormorant, they've given us a much better looking, much more respectable paint job. They've given us better gears, according to them, and they've added a very desirable, highly sought after, refined, pleasant sounding drag clicker. And as you can see, the Cormorant looks absolutely stunning on one of my Mavlos plumes. It's a very stealthy looking, high-end looking combo. Now if you think all this adds up to a reel that is more expensive than the Flight Feather, then you'd be correct. But just how much more expensive is this Cormorant? Well, when I went to NACO Fishing's website, I was kind of shocked to see that it was coming in at $249. So that puts this reel within sniffing distance of a lot of the top JDM BFS reels, including the King, which is a 22 ALDEBARAN BFS. Now, if you just take a look at the Cormorant in isolation, what it gives you for that money, the Cormorant is actually a deal. Now, if you take a look at the Cormorant, look at its specs, and compare to its bait finesse competition, you'll know that $249 is actually a bargain for a reel of this caliber. I mean, it's one of the lightest reels in the world. It's got JDM level build quality and refinement and tolerances, plus it's got the lightest stock bait finesse spool in the world by a long shot. So in my opinion, $250 in the grand scheme of things, me as a bait finesse enthusiast, I think it's a bargain. But keep in mind, NACO Fishing is generous enough to give you 20% off for a limited time as a Black Friday sale. So just click on the link in the comments that I pinned at the top, and you can pick up this reel for probably around 200 bucks. And at that price, that is an absolute steal. Alright guys, so they've given us what we wanted. They've given us the Flight Feather with the grown-up paint job, and they've added a drag clicker, and now it's available for you guys at NACO Fishing. So pick one up while supplies last. Alright guys, thanks a lot.